Welcome, everybody. My name is Wendy McKeithen. I am one of the implementation consultants at Engagingly, and I am your webinar host today. So today, our Success Labs is really focusing on building a culture of continuous improvement. There has been a lot of research over the last couple of years and kind of newer touches into life past COVID, right? Once the world kind of came to an end, a lot of priorities have reshifted. And that's really what we're talking about today, is where are priorities shifting and changing to have a more robust culture of performance and continuous improvement. It's not just now, the single one time you meet with your manager once a year, they give you your, 1% raise and that's it. Employees are expecting more from their employers. Employers are expecting more from the process. And then relating it all to how can Engagedly help you with this, with what you're already doing, help you digitize these processes, and help grow your culture for continuous improvement. Here at Engagedly, I support my customers in helping them onboard, and performance is one of the main things that, that I really prioritize in my learning to make sure I'm on top of everything to help my customers. So today, our key takeaways, we're really going to talk about some of the trends that we're seeing across the culture of environment of workplaces, of polls that have been done, of some of the research that has happened. Where are those trends pointing us? We're going to take a look at Engagedly modules that will help you. We're going to talk about the modules that will help you build this culture, help you build this continuous improvement process into what you're already doing. And then we'll do an overview of the performance review itself. All of these topics that we cover in the Engagedly modules, we've offered webinars on already. So you may have already attended one, you've already know a little bit about it. Today, we're really kind of bringing it all together. Now that you have all these pieces of Engagedly, we want to make sure that you're aware of them so that you can start maybe trying out something new and improving that culture overall. Trends in performance reviews, employee needs that have really popped up. So as I kind of mentioned, that traditional performance review where you're, meeting with your manager once a year, it's outdated. We have definitely seen a culture shift of more one-on-one meetings, more discussion with your managers throughout the year, but still, that is just the beginning. That is one perspective of an employee's performance. So what else can be added? There are other folks that they work with, colleagues, project managers, maybe even outside partners, clients that your employees work with or partner with. A more holistic approach of gathering all that information from all the various perspectives is really starting to be embraced. And what we're seeing across the board is that those holistic approaches are now including, you'll see a big push for 360-degree feedback. You might hear that from your organization, top down. I feel like this is almost like a buzzword right now. I have a lot of clients that are like, oh, we need to implement this quickly. My CEO read about this. Also, that holistic approach, rewarding and recognizing your employees throughout the year. Instead of your employees, keeping their own kudos file, how can we do this in a public or private way, but in a documented way so that as people are doing their job, achieving their goals, they're being recognized for that throughout the year, not just once a year during that performance review. So we'll take a look at one of the modules that can really support that to encourage conversations throughout the work year. And goal setting. Employees really are appreciating goal setting, knowing that they're being aligned with company goals, that what their work has meaning and purpose and is helping the organization overall achieve goals. That has also really enhance engagement in organizations. When your employees feel like their work is valued, recognized, talked about, all of these things here, this is going to increase engagement. And then by the time you get to performance review season and it's the annual review, you have a lot of data points to have a very holistic view of that employee. So we're going to take a look at how can Engagedly help. Those 4 main topics that are really coming up over and over again. Engagedly already has modules to support that. Many of you already use some of these modules. So like I mentioned, we're going to take a look at the modules that do support each one of these trends and how Engagedly will better improve that culture. So 360 feedback. What is 360 feedback? So this is an exercise, essentially, that allows feedback to be shared and received across all levels of the organization. So that may include their manager themselves. The employees can definitely be involved in their own 360 feedback, direct reports, peers and colleagues, anyone in the organization, right? I often work with people from other departments and other teams. 360 feedback allows those folks to provide feedback in a very structured manner that will then enhance that employee's performance. Engagedly also has a feature that allows you to include outside partners. So if your employee works with a vendor, a client, that their feedback is very essential, we can gather that as well. So that's really kind of the basis of what is 360. It is a comprehensive, full circle rotation look at whatever questions you determine to ask. The employee's skills, their competencies, areas for development. You will set the questions that are then provided for each one of those recipients that participate. Furthermore, how this process in Engagedly works. So we kind of talked about what it is. How can Engagedly really help with that? During this process, one of the key things to help a 360 feedback be more robust is having participants participate. HR administrators, managers, and even employees can nominate participants during this process in the Engagedly module. So this really allows, especially from an employee perspective, I know who I've worked closely with. My manager probably does too, but I get to nominate who's going to provide feedback. My manager will do that as well. And then HR, especially when we get up to making sure we include all levels of the organization, that's where your HR admins really will help make sure that the nominees are in a good final form as they head into filling out this form. And then each employee can have different sets of questions, which is really nice. Not each participant, each employee themselves, Wendy versus Gabby versus Jeeve, my team, we might send out a different set of questionnaire. But each person that participates will get that questionnaire. And what's really great inside of Engagedly is that it will create an individualized report available to the employee and or the manager. You as an HR admin would get to make that decision of who sees that report. And the 360 reporting in Engagedly is pretty cool. It shows areas of strength based on ratings and comments, and it shows areas of improvement. If the employee does a self-evaluation as well and rates themselves, it's going to also target like hidden strengths. Maybe there are things in there that I don't think I'm great at, but my team and my participants do. That's a hidden strength. Or maybe areas of weakness that I think I'm really strong at, but my team goes, Wendy, not so much. It will really start to highlight some of those discrepancies for you. And we've now recently released our AI Marissa, and now Marissa is part of this 360 process and will actually kind of summarize this report for you as well, which is really nice when you're trying to have a discussion with your employee, when you're trying to review this reporting. The purpose of 360 is to give a very holistic, structured process for receiving that continuous feedback. And you can launch this as often as you need to. I actually support a client that does a 360 cycle every single month. It's very impressive and a lot of setup, but it gives them a lot of information. Other clients do this once a year in preparation for the performance review. Twice a year. You can do this as often as you need to, include different participants. You're trying to build out that catalog of what has this employee done so that when you get to the performance review, we've filled in those gaps, right? Those areas for growth. It's not a surprise. We've been working on them for a while. Okay, one of the other trends was rewarding and recognizing your employees. Engagedly does have a module for this, but employees are really looking now for a culture that recognizes their achievements and contributions. We've always wanted that, but now in this digital world, social media world, the demand is even higher, right? I used to when I was 21 years old and teaching, there would be Teacher of the Month. That's how we were rewarded. Life has changed. I could be rewarded and recognized daily by my manager, by my colleagues. They want a culture that really allows one another to publicly acknowledge and celebrate each other's successes, ideas, and curiosities. So as employees are asking questions and learning of one another, we can really celebrate that, encourage that culture of continuous improvement. When I see that my colleague learned a new tool, I'm going to jump on that. I want to use that. Or they have an idea or a question that they need help with. It allows us to collaborate, to talk with one another, and then collect all those acknowledgments in one digitized place. They're also looking for cultures that provide meaningful rewards, right? We all get paid. We love that. We've got our bonus structure, but it's nice to have those little incentives throughout the way. So how can Engagedly help with all of that? Well, inside of our rewards and recognition, we've got multiple ways. Rewards and recognition is actually two different kind of separate modules you don't have to have on together. You could have on recognizing, where you're just simply praising and celebrating ideas and curiosities, those things that I've mentioned, in a very public way that's easy to track. Each employee gets data on what they say, who posts and respond. But then there's also the recognition side that might be private in Engagedly, where somebody wants to privately say to you and your manager, great job on that project. So that's also embedded in Engagedly. Connected to that is the rewards piece. Again, these two don't have to be turned on at the same time, these two different modules. Rewards is where your employees will actually earn points that are spendable when they are recognized. There's a lot of ways to receive that recognition in Engagedly, and there can be points values tied to that. So for example, points values tied to achieving their goals, or you create a custom reward. So maybe you have a contest at your local office and you want to come in and add custom rewards to those folks. That is what Engagedly can help you with, is build out custom ways to celebrate your employees. Now those points, if you choose to use the rewards side of it, can then be used to purchase items. We've recently launched custom rewards. So those of you who have used rewards in the past, our rewards process was very much connected to Tango, and it was the process of spending some of your additional funding to use in Tango gift cards. If you're unfamiliar with Tango, they remind me of those kiosks at the grocery store where you can buy a bunch of different gift cards to many different places and restaurants. Tango's the online digital version. But we've recently launched a custom reward so that you can add things like, casual Jean Day, lunch with your CEO, swag, earn a t-shirt, whatever you have in stock, things that you don't necessarily have to spend money on, like Tango cards, you can create custom rewards. Building out this culture of continuous improvement, if your employees are encouraged to celebrate one another, it increases that engagement, right? You're starting to see an uptick in performance and overall. And then when you get to those performance conversations, you have all this documentation of all the fabulous things that your employee has done throughout the year. Our check-in module allows your employees to have like a very focused, I use the word goal focused, but not necessarily like goals and engagingly, but like a purpose agenda focused check-in. They can do this with themselves or another colleague. I would say the most common use case in engagedly is like manager employee direct report check-ins. You'll see that the most. But this allows you to document your own processes. I actually do check-ins with myself where I summarize how my week went, what my struggles were, so that I have documentation when I, as the employee, get to my performance review of what I've worked on, my roadblocks that I overcame, and what I've accomplished. And you can use these check-ins to enhance that culture by scheduling conversations with employee and managers. They're probably already having these. Let's make them formal, schedule them in engagedly. Project managers use this often to ensure that their team members are on track with their goals and have the resources they need to be successful. What did you work on this week? What did you struggle with? Did you have the tools and the resources that you needed to be successful? Getting that feedback makes it so that things aren't a surprise. When this goal is supposed to be achieved and I didn't make it, why not? We should be having conversations along the way so that employees feel empowered to ask for the help that they need, and that the person they're asking that from can document that and really kind of track, are we getting the help that they wanted? And essentially, you're documenting conversations that you're already having with one another. I say all the time, if I don't write this down, I'm going to forget. Same thing. If I have a meeting in January about my project that I'm working on and my performance review is in November, if I didn't write down some information of what went well, how that was going, did I achieve that goal, I'm not going to remember. Documenting this continual conversation will really help enhance that performance review process. So how else can Engagedly help with this? We support this in multiple different ways. Single, one-time check-ins, recurring check-ins, similar to like how you have a recurring meeting with your manager every 2 weeks. Now just digitize it. You can create personalized templates to really focus in on the questions that you want to ask. And then the data inside of the check-ins of Engagedly will really show you previous responses so that you can measure like what has grown and changed. And my manager once said something to me about check-ins that I like to share with folks. He sends me out check-ins that are asking about what did I work on, what did I struggle with. I answer those in advance of meeting with my manager, and then we sit down and chat. And sometimes we don't even talk about what I put on my check-in. And I was very concerned about that coming into Engagedly, using Engagedly. And he said to me, well, Wendy, that allows me to kind of get through the basics of what you're doing. And if you aren't super struggling with something, that allows me in our check-ins to work on you individually, not just the work that you're doing, but you as an employee and a person and the growth that you're wanting to do. He said, I'm thrilled that you're working on your projects. I'm sorry that you ran into that trouble. We'll correct all of those and we'll do our best. But he really stressed to me that the purpose of check-ins was to help have conversations with my manager that can help me grow, kind of help my development plan, my succession planning. They can be bigger conversations to help me grow, opposed to just, hey, what are you working on? So just some ideas there for you. And then lastly, in the trends, one of the major trends that employees and employers are looking for is goal setting. So goals are simple, right? We all know what goals are. They might be career goals for myself. They might be goals that help the company and the organization achieve something larger. But this will help an employee stay focused on their own success and your organization's success. So it's really key to create effective goals. We encourage everybody to really use the SMART goal framework. I think that's pretty much the framework we've all kind of agreed on. Also, you really want to make sure you're involving your employees. Even from the organization level goals, you might have a top level goal that your leadership team has really discussed together. And then they may include, VPs, managers to help refine those organization goals and really make sure that they understand what the organization is trying to achieve. And as that trickles down to departments, individual users, individual employees, really involving those employees in that goal setting, helping them understand what we're trying to achieve and what role they could do, it kind of builds into that ownership of that goal. And then when employees' goals are aligned to organizational objectives, you'll really start to see some more engagement. When I feel like I am helping everybody, I'm much more engaged than just myself, right? We've all done like New Year's resolutions. You might stick to them, but when your resolution includes another person, you're a little bit more committed and engaged. Same idea here. So Engagedly supports all of this. We have the ability for you to create top-level goals, department goals, individual goals. And as I mentioned, we really have focused in on SMART goals. And each piece of the SMART acronym, if you're not familiar with it, those are the all caps in my screen here, Engagedly supports each piece of that acronym. So being specific when you create your goal, you have the opportunity to add a description, add a title, really define that goal as specific as possible. Your employees will enter how they're going to measure their own success. We've got a couple of different options for measuring success. If your organization really likes the OKR method, the objectives and key results, we support that as well by creating very achievable key results. Your employees are able to track that as they go and then see those results in the overall measure of their progress. In the SMART goal framework, employees like to make those goals relevant. That's that alignment piece. They can align their personal goals to an organizational goal to help the organization overall achieve that goal. And then the time frame. When is this due? What's really cool too about this goal setting module in Engagedly is we allowed the ability for goals, if you're using this module actively, to be pulled in to the performance review. So think about that. I've got goals throughout the year. I'm meeting with my manager or my project manager or whoever else during that continuous feedback check-in to talk about on track for my goals. How am I doing? And I start accomplishing all of those goals. Now it's performance review time, and we're bringing all of these things that you've implemented into place. The Engagedly performance review allows you to pull those goals that the employee has worked on into the review so you can assess and rate their accomplishments. So it's not just only at the performance review. I've accomplished these goals throughout the year. I've added notes and feedback and updated them and visually made some progress, and you can bring all of that together in the performance review. So those were the main things that we chatted through the various modules to help improve that culture of continuous improvement. I know that the summary and the objective of this webinar was really focusing on continuous improvement and how Engagedly can support that. But I also just wanted to highlight something that I feel is a trend that I have seen as I talk with others in this field, in this HR field, as I read all of the papers that are coming out. I have noticed a very large trend in the company needs side for data. It is fantastic that you have these digital tools. It is great that you are implementing this culture of continuous improvement, but what do you do with all of that? So these analytics with the performance review are really there to help you make some data-driven decisions about what's going on. The data here that we track. In Engagedly, for example, if you have ratings in your performance review, that data is going to be collected, and you'll be able to compare what did the employee rate themselves, what did the manager rate themselves. But let's just take a step back and think about what's the purpose of performance analytics? Well, what if you notice a trend in all of your ratings that your remote workers rate lower than your in-person workers? And you notice that it's really the manager is really struggling and with that team, and the performance ratings are popping up a lot lower. Right? That data might have been harder to track previously, but now I can dig in. What managers are they? Does that manager need training in supporting a remote workforce? That's kind of a new thing. Is there a discrepancy between what the employees feel about themselves and what the manager feels about themselves? How big of a discrepancy is that? Right? It gives you some target points to then dig in and figure out the hows and the whys. Employee analytics, a lot are being used for leadership potential. As you are doing succession planning, who's going to be the next leader? Having the data to see performance review ratings, potential in that leadership, being able to slice and dice that by department and who you're looking to promote in that succession planning, analytics are helpful for that. And then maybe too, you want specific data from your reviewers. Does this person need a individual performance plan, a personalized individual performance plan? You could track that data. Who are all of the yeses? Let's get that cohort onto these individual performance plans, and then let's analyze what we can do to best support them and make sure they have their resources and tools using some of the other methods. So I did want to really focus on how that data is provided in Engagedly. Now, this is just a screenshot here, and I just wanted to highlight some of the data and analytics that you have available post-performance review. You'll be able to see progress of who's completed the performance review. Is it ongoing? Is it completed? Have they not started? That type of thing. You'll be able to see the spread of ratings. Where are your employees falling? In the rating scale that you have customized and created, where do your employees lie? Are we skewing managers versus employees one direction or the other? Right? That analytics to really dig in. You'll also have that 9-box distribution. That's that leadership succession planning I was referencing. If you're unfamiliar with 9-box, we've got some help articles for you. But this is really meant to data focus, track potential for leadership. So that is some of the reporting that you'll get. If enabled, if you have goals enabled, you'll see the goal rating distribution. How did employees do on their goals? Again, you have to be actively using that module for this to be used. You'll have any HR and manager recommendations, data to look at, like I mentioned, like PIPs, folks who need to be on a PIP, you'll have all that data. And then if you include the training recommendations or development plans, you'll have data on that as well. So if you see that there are a lot of training recommendations centered around a certain topic, that gives you a great place to start as you're developing what next for my employees to continue growing. Okay, so that was the kind of our first chunk of trends that are happening right now and the modules that will be there to support that. Now, all of that is continuous feedback and improvement. So none of the modules that I've talked about so far is the performance module. That's just kind of the final piece, the bow on the present, right? You're doing all of this with your culture. You are encouraging employees and helping them grow and pinpointing pain points and areas that need to be corrected prior to getting to the performance review. But then you finally get to the performance review cycle. Now, the performance review cycle is fairly robust. It's broken into a couple of different parts. Your account manager, your implementation consultant can really work with you on this if you have never implemented a performance review. Today's meant to be a little bit more of an overview since we focus mainly on the culture, the continuous improvement culture. So, a little bit about our performance review modules. We have different types of performance review cycles. That's what we call them in Engagedly. A cycle is like the window of time and the questions that you ask. That can be based on hire date, work anniversary, or a specific date. Hire date I see primarily most effectively used for new hires. I personally went through new hire performance review. I had one at 30 and at 90 days. You could implement whatever type of performance check-in on those new hires that you would like to. I support one of my clients. They do 3. They do a 30, 60, and then like an 80 day because it's due by 90. And each one of those has a different purpose. The 30 day is, does the employee fit in? Do they like being here after 30 days? 60 days is much more focused on do you have all of your tools? Do you feel more independent? And the 90 days is much more manager focused. Now that they've been here, is this employee a good fit? So they kind of bucketed their topics and used that new hire cycle to support that. Work anniversary, that makes sense. If you have hire dates in there, on my anniversary, I will go through a performance cycle. And then focal point is everybody has a performance review in December. Cool, set that up. And then you get to customize it. That's where it gets really fun. You can include self-reviews, manager reviews. You can include the manager's manager. We call those skip levels. You can include any colleague as an additional reviewer. They have the option to add some comments. You can create your own customized rating scale. You can have manager recommendations, use that for succession planning, that 9 box we looked at. You can have a sign-off protocol, notifications. You really get to customize your cycle. So those of you who have never built a performance review process, no worries. What I would recommend, though, is really thinking about who's going to do what. Before you even put your hands on Engagedly, think about ideally the process. Who's going to answer what questions and when? And what I mean by that is, does the employee do a self-evaluation? What questions does the manager answer? Do they answer them at the same time, in parallel? Does the employee go first? Does the manager go second? Just really think through your process. Engagedly can support that. And again, your account managers, your implementation consultants can always help you with this. So there are 3 parts then to the performance review cycle: managing the cycle, building the cycle, and the template of questions. I'm going to go backwards and talk about the template first. I kind of like to start with the building block and build up. So the template, you can create as many as you need. You can customize your own sections and questions. and adding weight to those questions if you need to. You can add additional components like the goals module we talked about. If you're using actively the goals module, you can have that be part of the performance review process. You can pull in competencies. So the competencies piece, that's a little bit separate from what we've been talking about today, but Engagedly supports a competency library that can be specific to a job title or global for everybody. And the performance review process allows you to pull in those competencies if you've built out that library. So these goals and competencies are additional components that you can add in. So think about your cycle as you're building this process. The questions that you ask. Do your part-timers have a different set of questions than your full-timers? Do your hourly versus salaried have different questions? Does your leadership versus your standard employee have different questions? Does your sales team versus your marketing team have different questions? Like I said, you can build out as many templates as you need to so that you get personalized questions for your employees. Part 2 is the cycle. This is where you're going to create your rating scale, determine dates and deadlines, configure your workflows. Like I said, who's going to go first? Is the employee going to go before the manager? Is the manager going to do it at the same time? Are we including additional reviewers? The whole process, the workflow. There's also additional components you can add here at the cycle level. Things like the 9-box leadership potential for succession planning. Comment boxes. Do you want a place to gather thoughts later? For example, a one-on-one. That's probably one of my most popular when I work with my clients is after a performance review, everybody does a one-on-one. You can document that in Engagedly. So that's often an additional component that people will add in. You can add in recommendations, like I mentioned. Does this person need to be on a performance improvement plan? And then have data to show you all those yeses. So the cycle is really where you build out the nuances and the details that support the template that you created. And as we talked about, the cycle has those 3 different types: the hire date based, the work anniversary, and then the focal point. And then you'll manage your performance review. This is the best part for me from an admin perspective. You get to set up your performance review and then it just does the work for you. It kicks it off, sends reminders, sends emails, and you just sit back and you get to, as an HR administrator, watch the performance reviews come in. Maybe give a little bit of a reminder, but you'll just have the managing piece left. You'll be able to add and remove reviewees, so the employee themselves. You can add additional reviewers, like we talked about. Maybe you want to include a project manager to add some comments. You can assign specific templates to specific employees. So let's think about that for a second. We'll use my December example. It is December, it's performance review, focal point time for everybody. Cool. The sales team gets their template. The marketing team gets their template. When you're managing your performance review, this is where you make those determinations and you assign those to people. As many templates as you need. You can have as many cycles as you need as well, too. And then you'll be able to track individual progress. Who has submitted? Has the reviewee done their part? Has the reviewer done their part? Has the additional reviewers who can add comments, have they done their parts? You'll be able to visually be able to track that. And then as you're tracking that, you will be able to send additional nudges. Hey, don't forget to complete your review. So performance review really is managed in those 3 different pieces: template of questions, cycles, and that managing piece. So that is really our bulk for today. We looked at those trends, continuous feedback trends, goal setting, rewards and recognitions, continuous check-ins. Oh, 360 feedback from everybody. We looked at the Engagingly modules that will help support that continuous improvement, that culture of constantly checking in and seeing how you can improve and celebrating all those improvements. And then we did a quick overview of the performance review cycles. I hope that you've learned some nugget and you are potentially going to pick up a new module to help support continuous improvement so that your performance reviews are a little bit more engaging and much more robust. So thank you so much for attending today.